Ethan stepped into the softly lit bedroom, his eyes drawn to the woman sitting on the edge of the bed. Claire, stunning in her confidence and poise, met his gaze with a knowing smile. "Come here," she murmured, her voice a rich, inviting melody. He obeyed, stepping close enough to inhale the subtle hint of vanilla on her skin. As he reached out, he remembered what she had once told him. Touch isn't just about contact. It's about intention. So he started with her hair, his fingers sliding through the silky strands, massaging her scalp gently. She sighed, tilting her head into his hand, the tension melting from her body. His lips traced a path down to her neck, where he let his breath linger before placing soft, lingering kisses along her pulse point. She shivered, her hands gripping his waist, pulling him closer. Next, his hands traveled to her shoulders, kneading them with deliberate pressure, his thumbs working out the tension. "God, that feels amazing," she breathed, tilting her head back. Ethan's hands skimmed down the curve of her lower back, pressing and stroking in slow circles. "You carry so much here," he murmured against her ear. She melted into him, her body surrendering to his touch. With deliberate slowness, he traced the inside of her wrist, feeling the delicate flutter of her pulse. He kissed the sensitive skin, making her gasp softly. He didn't forget her thighs, his fingers dancing over them, teasing, applying just enough pressure to make her arch into him. "You're learning fast," she murmured, her voice thick with desire. Finally, he cupped her feet, his thumbs pressing into the arches, drawing a deep moan from her lips. She looked at him through heavy-lidded eyes, a smile curving her lips. "You're a dangerous man," she whispered, pulling him down onto the bed with her. "And you're a woman worth knowing how to touch," he murmured before claiming her mouth in a kiss that promised so much more. Claire pulled Ethan onto the bed, her fingers tracing the lines of his jaw before pulling him into a slow, lingering kiss. There was no rush, only a delicious, unspoken anticipation between them. She sighed as his hands continued their journey, returning to the places he had just awakened. His fingers trailed through her hair again, massaging the sensitive spot at the base of her skull. She shivered under his touch, a low hum of pleasure escaping her lips. He dipped lower, placing feather-like kisses along her neck, teasing the sensitive skin just below her ear. She tilted her head instinctively, offering more of herself, and he took his time, letting his tongue flick against the spot that made her exhale sharply. Ethan knew her shoulders carried the weight of years of experience, passion, and unspoken desires. He slid her silk robe down, exposing smooth, warm skin. His hands moved in slow, deliberate circles, kneading away the tension, his fingers pressing into the muscles just right. "You have no idea how good that feels," she murmured, voice laced with pleasure. He smirked, leaning in to whisper, "I want to know exactly how good it feels everywhere." His lips brushed over her collarbone as he moved lower, his hands traveling to her lower back. His touch here was different, less firm, more teasing. He traced his fingertips along her spine, making her arch slightly, her body responding instinctively. "You're teasing me," she accused breathlessly. "Would you rather I stop?" he asked, his fingers dipping just below the curve of her waist. "Don't you dare." He chuckled, pressing a warm, open-mouthed kiss at the small of her back before shifting lower. Taking her wrist in his hands, he placed gentle kisses along the delicate skin, his lips ghosting over the sensitive veins beneath. Claire gasped as he lightly sucked on the inside of her wrist, sending a jolt of sensation straight to her core. Her breath hitched when his hands glided over her thighs, his thumbs pressing just enough to make her legs part slightly. He kneaded the soft flesh, drawing slow, lazy circles with his fingertips, feeling the way her muscles tightened under his touch. "You're making it hard to think," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Good," he murmured, his lips following the path of his hands. Finally, Ethan moved down to her feet, taking one in his hands, his thumbs pressed into the arch, massaging with just the right amount of pressure. Claire moaned, her body fully surrendering to the pleasure. She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. A wicked smile curved her lips as she pulled him back up toward her. "Enough about me," she whispered, flipping him onto his back. "Now, let me show you what I know about touch." The air between them was charged, thick with the weight of unspoken desire. Ethan stood before Claire, his fingertips brushing against her wrist as if testing the waters before fully diving in. Touch isn't just about contact, she had once told him. It's about intention. He remembered those words now, watching the way she responded to his every move. She was experienced, confident, a woman who knew her body and its desires, but tonight he wanted to be the one to unravel her, to make her lose control. He started with her hair, running his fingers through the silky strands, letting them cascade between his hands. He gently massaged her scalp, tracing slow circles with his fingertips. She sighed, a soft, contented sound, her eyes fluttering closed as she leaned into his touch. "That feels amazing," she murmured. He dipped his head, placing a feather-like kiss against her neck. She shivered as he let his lips linger, teasing the sensitive skin just below her ear. He exhaled, letting the heat of his breath trail over her pulse point before pressing another soft kiss. Her hands gripped his waist, pulling him closer. His hands found her shoulders, kneading them with a slow, deliberate rhythm. He could feel the tension melt beneath his touch, the way her body responded as he applied just the right amount of pressure. "You carry so much here," he murmured against her skin. She sighed. "Too much." He smirked. "Then let me take some of it away." Ethan's lips trailed down her collarbone as his hands traveled lower, settling at her lower back. He knew this was where she loved to be touched, where she was most sensitive. His fingers moved in slow, teasing strokes, tracing the gentle curve of her spine. She arched into him, her body instinctively seeking more. "You're learning," she whispered, her voice thick with pleasure. "I have a good teacher," he teased, pressing a kiss just above her waist. Claire exhaled a shaky breath as he moved lower. He took her wrist in his hands, his thumb stroking the delicate skin before bringing it to his lips. He kissed the inside, feeling the flutter of her pulse beneath his lips. Then, with the lightest flick of his tongue, he traced a slow line along the sensitive vein. She gasped. "Ethan." He didn't stop there. His hands trailed down her arms, over the curve of her hips before settling on her thighs. He pressed his palms against them, his thumbs tracing slow, lazy circles along the inner part. She parted her legs slightly, her body giving him silent permission to explore further. He chuckled softly. "You're making this too easy for me." "Don't mistake surrender for ease," she countered, her voice breathless but playful. Her confidence was intoxicating. He loved that about her. Ethan leaned in, his lips brushing the sensitive skin along her thigh, his touch becoming both possessive and reverent. He could feel her body tensing, anticipating his next move, but he took his time, savoring every reaction, every delicious sound she made. Finally, he slid lower, his hands gliding down the length of her legs until they reached her feet. He took one in his hands, his thumbs pressing into the arch with firm, knowing pressure. Claire moaned, a sound so deep and sensual that it sent a jolt of heat straight through him. She lifted her head, her eyes half-lidded, heavy with desire. "You're dangerous, Ethan." "And you're beautiful," he murmured, pressing a lingering kiss to her ankle before moving back up, his body hovering over hers. She reached for him, pulling him down until their lips met again, but this time, she took control. She flipped him onto his back, straddling him with practiced ease. "Enough about me," she whispered, her fingers tracing slow, torturous patterns along his chest. "Now, let me show you what I know about touch." Her hands moved with the same deliberate patience he had shown her. She started at his hair, threading her fingers through it, tugging gently, making him groan under his breath. She massaged his scalp, her nails scratching lightly as she moved, sending shivers down his spine. She leaned down, her lips grazing his neck, teasing him with slow, open-mouthed kisses. He tilted his head back, surrendering to her touch, just as she had done for him. Her hands drifted down to his shoulders, pressing and kneading, exploring the strong muscles beneath her fingers. "You're tense," she noted. "Hard not to be when you're doing that," he admitted with a low chuckle. She smirked but didn't reply. Instead, she slid her hands lower, over his lower back, her nails raking gently down his spine. He groaned, his body responding to every touch. Her lips found the inside of his wrist, mirroring the way he had touched her. She kissed the sensitive skin, flicking her tongue against his pulse point just enough to make his breath hitch. She didn't stop there. Her hands roamed down his body, over his thighs, her fingers pressing into the firm muscle. She knew exactly how to make him weak, how to make him crave more. "You're teasing me," he accused, his voice rough with desire. "Would you rather I stop?" she teased, echoing his words from earlier. He exhaled a shaky breath. "Don't you dare!" Her laughter was soft, wicked as she leaned down, her lips brushing against his. "Then hold on, love. I'm just getting started." And with that, she continued her slow, torturous exploration of his body, proving that she knew just as much about the art of touch as he did. This version expands on the intimacy, adding even more depth to the sensual connection between them. Let me know if you'd like it to be even steamier or if you prefer a different direction. The night was thick with desire, the air between them humming like the strings of a finely tuned instrument. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, watching Ethan through hooded eyes, a knowing smile curving her lips. "Come closer," she whispered, her voice a melody of invitation. Ethan obeyed, stepping forward until he stood between her parted knees. He traced a fingertip along her jawline, marveling at the way her skin warmed under his touch. Claire was older than him, wiser, a woman who carried herself with an effortless confidence that both fascinated and aroused him. He had always admired her experience, the way she understood pleasure, not just receiving it, but giving it, sharing it, amplifying it. Tonight, he wanted to be the one to lead her into surrender. His fingers drifted into her hair, weaving through the silky strands, massaging her scalp with slow, hypnotic motions. She sighed, tilting her head into his touch, her body already relaxing beneath his hands. He loved the way she responded so openly, so honestly, as if every touch, every caress was something to be savored. Leaning in, he let his lips hover just above her neck, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath. He knew how sensitive she was here, how just the slightest tease could send shivers down her spine. And so he took his time. His mouth grazed the skin just beneath her ear, barely touching, before he pressed a soft, lingering kiss there. Claire's breath hitched, her fingers tightening around his waist. Encouraged, he kissed lower, his tongue tracing a slow path down to her collarbone. "You're being cruel," she murmured, her voice a husky whisper. Ethan smirked against her skin. "Am I?" She exhaled a shaky laugh, her body arching slightly as his hands slid to her shoulders, kneading the tension from them with deliberate, knowing pressure. She melted under his touch, her head falling back slightly. "God, that feels good," she murmured. "That's the idea," he whispered, his lips grazing her ear. His fingers traveled lower, skimming the line of her spine before settling at the curve of her lower back. He knew this was where she carried her stress, where she longed to be touched the most. He traced the dip just above her waist, his thumbs pressing slow, tantalizing circles into her muscles. Claire moaned softly, a sound that sent heat rushing through him. "You're getting too good at this," she teased, her voice breathless. "Maybe I just have the right motivation." His hands moved lower still, tracing the outer curves of her hips before lifting one of her hands to his lips. He pressed a gentle kiss to the inside of her wrist, feeling the flutter of her pulse beneath his lips. She gasped. Ethan smirked. "Didn't expect that, did you?" She shook her head, her eyes dark with need. "You're full of surprises." "And I'm not done yet." He shifted, kneeling before her, his hands gliding along her thighs. He felt the heat of her skin, the way her muscles tensed beneath his touch. He traced lazy circles along the sensitive inner part, teasing but never rushing. Claire parted her legs slightly, granting him silent permission. He leaned forward, pressing a single lingering kiss to the top of her thigh, just close enough to drive her wild but not quite where she wanted him. "Ethan!" Her voice was a mix of frustration and pleasure. He chuckled against her skin. "Patience." His hands traveled further down, his fingers wrapping around her feet. He lifted one gently, his thumbs pressing into the arch, kneading the tension away. Claire groaned, her head falling back onto the pillows. "God," she whispered, "you have no idea how good that feels." He smiled, pressing another kiss to the top of her foot before moving back up, reclaiming his place above her. "You're dangerous," she murmured, looking up at him through heavy-lidded eyes. Ethan traced his fingers down the side of her body, his touch feather-light, teasing, promising more. "And you're irresistible." She reached up, pulling him down until their lips met in a slow, consuming kiss. This wasn't the hurried passion of youthful lust. This was deeper, richer, a dance of experience and desire. With a sudden movement, Claire flipped them, pinning him beneath her with an effortless grace that made his breath catch. She straddled him, her hands moving with purpose as she explored his body the way he had explored hers. Her fingers tangled in his hair, tugging slightly, making him groan under his breath. She smiled at his reaction, leaning down to brush her lips against his neck, her tongue flicking over his pulse point, her teeth grazing just enough to send a shiver through him. "You like that," she observed, pleased. "Very much," he admitted, his hands gripping her waist. She trailed her fingers over his shoulders, her touch both firm and soothing, before sliding them down his back. She mimicked his earlier moves, her nails raking lightly down the curve of his lower back, making his breath hitch. Her lips found the inside of his wrist, mirroring the way he had kissed hers. She flicked her tongue against the sensitive skin, watching his reaction with satisfaction. "You're teasing me now," he rasped. She smirked, pressing her body against his. "Would you rather I stop?" Not a chance. Her hands continued their exploration, gliding over his thighs, kneading the firm muscles with knowing pressure. He groaned, his grip tightening on her hips. Claire leaned down, her lips grazing his ear. "You've had your fun," she whispered. "Now it's my turn." And as she kissed her way down his body, Ethan realized that in the art of touch, Claire was a master. This version expands the sensations, deepens the emotional connection, and adds more tension, making the story even richer. Let me know if you like any more details or adjustments. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension, each heartbeat echoing between them, a silent rhythm that only they could understand. Ethan stood before Claire, his gaze never leaving hers as he took in the sight of her, beautiful, confident, every inch of her radiating a quiet magnetic power. Her eyes were dark with desire, lips parted slightly, as though waiting for him to make the next move. Her beauty wasn't just skin deep, it was in the way she carried herself, in the way she made him feel when she touched him. She was a woman who knew herself, every inch of her body, every place where pleasure resided, and tonight Ethan wanted to discover it all. He took a step closer, his breath catching slightly as he reached out, his fingers brushing through her hair, the strands silky and soft beneath his fingertips. She exhaled a soft sigh, a sound of appreciation that stirred something deep inside him. "You don't have to be gentle," she whispered, the words a challenge and a plea all at once. Ethan smiled, knowing exactly what she meant. He wasn't holding back, he just wanted to savor every moment, to stretch this out, to explore her in ways that would make her body ache with anticipation. He began massaging her scalp, his thumbs moving in circles, applying just the right amount of pressure to release the tension that clung to her muscles. Claire closed her eyes, tilting her head into his touch. The sound of her soft moans filled the air as she surrendered to the sensation. "Feels so good," she murmured, her voice a throaty whisper that made his pulse quicken. His lips found their way to her neck, just below her ear where the skin was soft and delicate. He pressed a kiss to her pulse point, feeling the quick thrum of her heartbeat beneath his lips. With every kiss, she shivered, her body responding to his touch in ways that made him ache with desire. He kissed lower, tracing a path down to the curve of her collarbone. He felt her breath hitch as he reached the sensitive spots along her skin, her hands moving to his chest, pulling him closer. His hands moved to her shoulders, kneading the muscles there. Feeling the tautness, the hidden stress she carried, she had lived a life full of experiences, joys, and burdens, and tonight he was determined to help her let go of it all. "You carry so much tension here," he murmured, his fingers pressing deeper into the soft skin of her shoulders. "I always do," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "Not tonight," he promised, his hands working in slow, deliberate circles. She let out a deep sigh, her body slowly relaxing under his touch. His fingers trailed lower, over her spine until he reached the small of her back, a place where she had once told him was the most sensitive. His thumb pressed into the delicate curve of her lower back, massaging gently but firmly. She gasped, her body arching toward him, instinctively seeking more of that touch. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with desire. He moved his lips back to her neck, brushing the soft skin with light, teasing kisses. His hands continued to explore her body, tracing the curves of her hips before sliding slowly down her thighs, feeling the heat radiating from her skin. Her body tensed slightly, the anticipation building, but she didn't stop him. Instead, she shifted beneath him, her hands moving to his chest, to his waist, tugging at his shirt as if desperate to get closer, to feel more of him. "Take your time," she said, her voice barely audible. Ethan took a breath, steadying himself. He wanted to do this right, to make every second of this night unforgettable. His hands continued their slow journey, fingers sliding over the soft skin of her thighs, tracing delicate patterns as he inched closer to the inner, more sensitive part of her. She opened her legs slightly, just enough to allow him access, and he could feel the anticipation between them growing, thickening, but he didn't rush. Instead, he leaned in, his lips brushing against her wrist, kissing the inside where the skin was soft and warm. She gasped softly, the sound reverberating in the air, and his heart raced at the way she responded to him, how every touch made her body tremble. Her eyes locked onto his as she reached for him, pulling him into a kiss that was deep, urgent, and filled with a hunger that mirrored his own. They tasted each other slowly, savoring the sweetness of their kiss, the warmth of their skin pressed together. She ran her hands over his shoulders, tracing the hard lines of his muscles as if memorizing the feel of him. He could feel the tension in her, but it wasn't discomfort. It was the anticipation of something deeper, something more intimate than either of them had shared before. Ethan shifted, moving lower, his hands now at her feet, where he pressed his thumbs into the arch, massaging the soft skin. The moan that escaped her lips was low and deep, a sound that made him hard with desire. He didn't stop there. He kissed along the delicate lines of her feet, feeling the shiver run through her body. "You're torturing me," she breathed. He smiled against her skin. "I'm just getting started." Her hand slid down to his chest, pulling him back up to meet her lips again. She kissed him fiercely this time, her hands pushing him back onto the bed. She straddled him, moving with the fluid grace of a woman who knew what she wanted. "Now it's my turn," she said, her voice low and commanding. She kissed him deeply, pressing her body against his as her hands roamed over his chest, down his sides, over his thighs, mirroring the touch he had given her. He groaned at the way her hands moved with such purpose, with such confidence. "You feel so good," she whispered, her lips grazing his ear. "I've wanted this for so long." Ethan's hands gripped her hips, guiding her movements, feeling the heat of her body against his. "Then let me show you just how good it can be." And with that, he surrendered to the rhythm they created together, letting their bodies speak the language of desire. In this extended version, I've further developed the sensory experiences and heightened the emotional connection between Ethan and Claire. Their shared intimacy deepens not only physically but emotionally as they explore each other's desires with patience and intensity. This creates a more powerful, sensual experience for both characters. Let me know if you'd like to continue with more detail or shift the direction of the story in any way. Next part, continue.